Never let a doctor see her. I felt an odd swelling in my 10-year-old daughter's stomach. When I hurried to take her to the hospital, my husband, Ken, yelled and blocked my way. Why is he panicking like this? Is there something wrong that would come out in a medical exam, judging by Ken's unusually flustered behavior? When I took my daughter to the hospital in silence, I was told a diagnosis that I had never imagined. Furthermore, the shocking truth spoken by my daughter made me tremble with rage. Absolutely unforgivable. This was directed towards Ken, whom I thought adored our daughter. Because I had never imagined he would do such a thing. Ken and I were colleagues at my father's toy company. Our office romance eventually led to marriage. Following our wedding, I quit my job, and a year later, I was pregnant. However, not everything was smooth sailing. It happened when I was 9 months pregnant. Ken, what's the meaning of this? What's got you so angry? Look at this online banking. You have nothing to say? That is. Ken had withdrawn $6,000 from our family savings account, which we had started after getting married, and spent it all. Our child is about to be born, and we're gonna need money. What did you spend such a large amount on? I was furious, as we had been saving every month for our future. I spent it on anime. There was this character I really liked, and I just had to have the merchandise. My anger reached its peak at Ken's hesitant and mumbling explanation. Huh? Anime? We're about to have a bigger family, and this is what you're thinking about? That's it, I want a divorce. Just wait a minute. Let's calm down, all right? Ken was desperate to calm me down. I am calm. Whose fault do you think it is that I'm this angry? Do you even realize you're about to become a parent? I'm sorry. I'll never do something like this again. Please forgive me. Watching Ken apologize profusely, my anger started to subside a little. And I found myself regretting blurting out divorce in the heat of the moment. Thinking about our child who was about to be born, the idea of raising her alone was daunting, and I decided to forgive Ken. Since then, he seemed to have learned his lesson, enjoying his hobbies with just his allowance. Soon after, I gave birth. Our daughter, born a bit small at 5 pounds 10 years ago, is now in the 4th grade. I was worried about her slow growth compared to her peers when she was younger, but now it seems like it was all needless worry. You might surpass Mom's height soon. Jolie, innocently laughing, had sprouted in height rapidly since starting elementary school, nearly surpassing my height. Due to her mature appearance for her age, she was sometimes mistaken for a middle schooler. As for Ken, it took a while after Jolie's birth for him to act like a father, reluctantly doing what I asked. When did that start happening, roughly? It was around when our daughter began to be aware of her surroundings that he strangely started showing interest in her, becoming actively involved in parenting. Ken adores our only daughter, and Jolie loves her dad too. All right, Jolie. After we take a bath together today, let's have some ice cream in secret from Mom. Yeah. Let's do it. Come on, Dad, let's go to the bath. Hey. Mom can hear everything, you know? Not only baths, but they also slept in the same bed, a habit from when she was little, which I found endearing. However, I began to wonder if it was time to stop this practice. It was after a conversation during a tea party with my mom friends. Lately, my daughter has been really averse to her dad. It's been tough. Really? What's it like? She says stuff like, Dad, you're stinky, don't come near me, in a strong tone, so he's really down about it. That must be sad for Dad. We're still in the dad's great phase, I guess. Still taking baths together, still sleeping in the same bed. Really? That true? The moment I said that, seeing my mom friends surprised, almost taken aback face made me realize that might not be normal. Is that kind of weird? Not necessarily weird, but... We stopped when she was in 2nd grade. Dad said it was time to stop taking baths together. Said it was getting embarrassing. Really? But my daughter is 10 now, and her body is starting to develop into a woman's. Jolie does look mature for her age. But it's nice she loves her dad so much. I could tell she was trying to cover for me as I pondered unexpectedly, but I couldn't shake the thought from my mind. So, that night, I brought it up with Ken. Hey, how long do you plan on taking baths with Jolie? Huh? Why are you asking all of a sudden? But, well, as long as possible, I guess. Are you serious? The husband of my mom friend stopped going in with her before she turned 3 because he said he was more embarrassed than she was. So, what's the issue? Other families have their ways. She loves me, so it's fine. Ken didn't seem to take it very seriously or think deeply about it. But I wonder if there comes a time when Jolie naturally starts to avoid their father. Jolie didn't seem to dislike it, so I thought we might just wait and see a little longer. However, I didn't realize then that I would come to regret not thinking deeper about it. A few weeks later, one morning. Jolie, good morning. Hurry up or you'll be late. Good morning. What's that about? My daughter's pajamas were oddly disheveled as she woke up. It had happened before, but on this day, she also seemed unusually lethargic, pale, and her expression was gloomy. Jolie, are you okay? Feeling sick? Does anything hurt? No, I'm fine. Maybe just hungry. I've been getting really hungry lately. Maybe it's a growth spurt. My daughter tried to keep a bright face and forced a laugh. Somehow, her behavior, like she was hiding something, bothered me. If you ever have any trouble, you can always tell Mom, okay? Yeah. I got it. My daughter quickly looked down but then started eating her breakfast with a smile. And after this incident, a change occurred in my daughter. From that day on, she somehow started avoiding Ken. Jolie, what shall we talk about while we sleep today? I think I'll sleep with Mom today. I have a lot of things I want to talk to Mom about. You can always talk to Mom, right? Dad has work, so bedtime is pretty much the only time I get to talk to Jolie. Yeah, but... My daughter averted her eyes from her father and fell silent. Today, I promised we'd have some girl talk, right? Dad, let's do this another time, please. When I playfully threw a lifeline to my daughter, Ken clicked his tongue and left the living room. Are you okay? You know you can say no to Dad if you don't want to do something, right? Yeah, thanks, Mom. The avoidance of Ken continued, but he still tried to invite our daughter for baths together or to sleep, as he used to. Jolie is hitting puberty, so it might be best not to push her too much. I subtly warned Ken, but he had a strangely angry look on his face. I was pleased to see our daughter developing a normal dislike for her father, a sign of growing up, but it seemed Ken and I had different views. Well, it might be understandable for a father, who was used to being close to his daughter, to find it hard to let go, so I didn't worry too much about it. Months later, I was shocked to see my daughter's appearance one morning. Unbelievably, Jolie's lower abdomen was noticeably swollen. Jolie, what's with your belly? Eh? What do you mean? She seemed unconcerned, but it was obviously not normal. Hey, you see this too, right? We need to take her to the hospital, don't we? In a panic, I called Ken, who was getting ready in the bathroom, to show him Jolie's swollen belly. Absolutely do not let a doctor see her. After a moment of surprise, he suddenly shouted and began to panic. But this swelling is definitely not normal. Doctors are out of the question. Do not take her, no matter what. Ken stressed this point repeatedly before heading off to work. But I couldn't just not take her to the hospital. It was my responsibility for not noticing sooner, but I couldn't afford to wait until something happened to my daughter. Jolie, we're going to the hospital now. Get ready. Dad said not to go. Don't worry about that. It'll be okay. I took my daughter to the car and headed for the hospital. "Jolie, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay," I reassured my increasingly anxious daughter as we waited our turn at the hospital. Feeling my daughter's abdomen again, it was noticeably swollen towards the lower part. "Mom, I'm sorry for keeping quiet. I've been feeling sick and haven't been able to eat for a while now. And recently, it feels like there's something in my stomach." The dreadful thought that she might be pregnant crossed my mind. But my daughter is 10 years old. And if that were the case, the question of who the partner could be. The very thought sent shivers down my spine. Soon after the examination was over, the doctor shared astonishing results. "If I had paid more attention to Jolie, this wouldn't have happened. I'm sorry." "No, it's not your fault, Mom. But Dad." Gradually, Jolie began to share about what had been hidden. These were the shocking truths. As she cried, I stroked her back, my emotions a mix of rage and indescribable disgust towards my husband. "I'll never forgive him for doing such a thing to our daughter." I resolved to make my husband regret his actions, no matter what. When I got home, I checked Ken's study, then made a call to a certain place. Next, I texted my husband that I'd be late because of a neighborhood meeting and that Jolie was feeling ill and resting. With everything prepared, I decided to wait for my husband's return at home after leaving my daughter at my parents' house that night. As he was about to return, I pretended to be Jolie, lying in her bed, holding my breath. "I'm home." Ken came home earlier than usual in a seemingly good mood, went straight to his room, and then came into my daughter's room with something in his hand. Thinking it was Jolie in the bed, he stood by the bedside and began to stroke over the blanket. Just as I thought. The worst. I hid under the blanket to avoid detection, filled with disgust as he touched more. "Jolie, I heard you're feeling bad. Are you okay?" I shook my head under the blanket, and Ken spoke in a cajoling tone. "Let me see your face. Seeing Dad might make you feel better, right?" Ken kept talking persistently, even trying to forcibly remove the blanket. For a while, it was a struggle between me holding the blanket tightly and him trying to see my face at any cost. "Come on, no need to be shy. Dad's been lonely since Jolie has been so cold lately." Listening to Ken speak in a sweet voice, more suited to addressing a lover than his daughter, I shuddered but held my ground. "It looks like Mom will be home late today, so now we have plenty of time to do our usual thing, huh?" Unable to tolerate his eerie tone any longer, I threw off the blanket and stood up. "What do you mean by usual stuff? What are you planning to take your time with?" "What? Jolie, what's gotten into you all of a sudden?" My husband stumbled backward in shock, eventually falling to the ground, scattering what he was holding all over the floor. Then, seeing me standing in front of him, he realized it was me and not Jolie. His face turned to one of panic. "Why is Kelly here? What happened to the neighborhood meeting? Where's Jolie?" That was a lie. I had to do something drastic to expose your true face." "Huh? Doing something like that, you're the worst. Feel free to say whatever you want." I was surprised that Ken believed the content of the email and acted exactly as I had anticipated, revealing his true nature just as I had predicted. "Hey! Explain yourself. I'm the one who wants an explanation. What is this? You were planning to dress Jolie in this?" I pointed to the items Ken had dropped on the floor and questioned him. Ken, seemingly having completely forgotten about them, hurriedly gathered them up and clutched them tightly. It's a present for Jolie. I thought it would suit her, so I bought it." "Really? Is that so?" Unable to withstand my gaze, he was stumbling over his words, his face sweating profusely. "But this looks like a cosplay costume, doesn't it?" The outfit Ken had was clearly the kind that men would fancy, an anime character costume. These were with large openings at the shoulders and chest, and an extremely short skirt. Presenting this as a gift, I have to question your taste. This is... Jolie said she wanted to try it on because it's cute. Ken was sweating bullets, stuttering in response. That's from a late-night anime with a sexy character. There's no way she would watch something like that. Well, that is... Ken went silent and didn't try to answer any further. And you were planning to dress Jolie in this and take pictures, weren't you? My accusation clearly made my husband turn pale. Not really. I didn't have such intentions. But well, if it's possible to take photos for memories, I guess I would want to. So, you've been taking pictures like this all along. I thrust a photo album in front of him. It was something I found hidden away in the back of his closet when I checked his study. It was filled with numerous cosplay photos. Hey! Don't touch my treasure with your filthy hands! Ken, who had been speaking evasively until now, suddenly changed his attitude, pushing me away and snatching the album. Ouch! Why do you have to be so rough? There's no need for that. It's because you're meddling with my stuff, Kelly. It's all your fault, you know. All of this is because of you. Huh? How does that even make sense? Holding the album closely, he glared at me. Because it's true. It's all your fault for limiting my anime hobby, Kelly. Furthermore, he started to complain that he couldn't buy his favorite anime character goods or go to events just with his allowance. Plus, right after our child was born, I was forced to babysit, taking away my time to watch anime. I was dumbfounded by his claims. Yet, he continued to insist on his point of view. But I couldn't help being excited as Jolie grew up so quickly, becoming more and more like my favorite characters. Watching him adoringly gaze at the album as if he were caressing it made my skin crawl. Don't joke with me. Do you have any idea how much Jolie was struggling? Being scared at just 10 years old. On the way back from the hospital, I had heard this story from my daughter. Ken had always made Jolie cosplay and took photos of her in the middle of the night when they slept together. Initially, she was happy to wear cute clothes, but recently she started to dislike the increasingly revealing outfits. Despite Jolie's refusal, Ken wouldn't listen. Moreover, finding out that Ken posted those photos on social media scared her even more. When I checked his computer, I found countless photos of a young girl, clearly not an adult, though her face wasn't visible. It was obviously Jolie. Don't just go snooping through people's stuff. Then maybe you should put a password on it. I could see everything as soon as I opened the computer. I added insult to injury, watching him bite his lip in frustration. Plus, you've been selling those photos and making a pretty penny, haven't you? Jolie was shown a cosplay photo found on the internet by a classmate saying it looked like her. Poor thing. She was pretty shocked. But Jolie couldn't confide in anyone because Ken had sworn her to secrecy about the photos. Moreover, because of that, Jolie's stomach. Don't tell me she got pregnant? But I have nothing to do with that. It's not my problem. My husband was more concerned about himself than worried about our daughter. He's really the worst. No. Jolie became extremely constipated from stress from worrying too much. The abnormal swelling in my daughter's abdomen was due to stress-induced constipation. When the doctor told us at the hospital, I was relieved but also deeply regretted not being able to see how much pain my daughter had been in. You took her to the hospital? I told you not to let a doctor see her. Were you afraid Jolie would say something during the examination? Humph. His silence probably meant I had hit the nail on the head. When I silently handed him the divorce papers I had prepared, his face momentarily showed shock. Divorce. Well, divorce is inevitable, but I'm taking custody of Jolie. Huh? What are you talking about? Because Jolie is attached to me. I earn more, so I can definitely take custody. Even now, he was smugly confident he could manipulate the situation to his advantage, smirking. "You're greatly overestimating yourself. But she already said she doesn't want to see Daddy anymore. Don't lie. That can't be true." I pulled out my phone and showed him Jolie's message that read, "I hate Daddy." "That's a lie. She loves me. She's my Jolie." Ken started throwing things around the room in a tantrum, his actions resembling a child whose toy had been taken away. Realizing it was futile to stop him, I watched on, dumbfounded. "It's all your fault. I'll never forgive you." Minutes later, when he ran out of things to throw, he glared at me, but his childishness only elicited a sigh from me. I never thought my husband could be such a scumbag. But I can't afford to lose, not when it comes to protecting my precious daughter. "I've already told my parents everything about the divorce and its reasons. You'll have to explain to your parents yourself. Or I can tell them the truth without twisting anything if you prefer." Wait a sec. Does your dad already know about this? That's exactly what I'm saying. This is an issue within our family. Why do you always have to involve my in-laws in everything? My husband started pacing around the room, venting his frustration on me as he scratched his head. "It's not unrelated. Jolie is our precious granddaughter." Just then, the door opened, and my father entered, causing Ken to jump in surprise. "My father-in-law!" Ken's demeanor instantly shrank in the presence of my father, who is also his boss and my father-in-law. "First, as the president of your company, let me say this. Our company creates toys that excite children, and we don't need an employee who treats children like products. You're fired." "No. Please, boss. Anything but that." Ken panicked at the thought of losing his job, but my father continued unfazed. "Next, as Jolie's grandfather. Enough is enough. It's disgusting that you would look at your own daughter that way. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I promise I'll never do it again. Please." Ken was so desperate he even bowed deeply to my father. "Kelly, please, say something to your father for me. Convince him." My husband, realizing he couldn't handle this alone, begged me for help. "We're getting divorced, so whatever happens to you is no longer my concern. It's up to my father to decide about the company. Don't be so cold. We've been married for over 10 years, right?" "Unfortunately, that's true." As I sighed, Ken, thinking he might be forgiven, crept closer to me. "I regret not leaving you when I found out you were dipping into our savings before Jolie was born." Pushing Ken away, I placed the divorce papers in front of him again, and he suddenly became defiant. "I won't get a divorce. I take back what I said. You haven't signed it yet, so it's still okay, right?" "What?" "No matter what you say, my mind is made up about the divorce. You're wasting your time." Despite my refusal, Ken approached me again, eventually kneeling down. "Let's just talk this out calmly, Kelly. If we talk, I'm sure we can understand each other eventually." No, I'm telling you it's over." Yet, he persisted, clinging to me while crying. "If I say I'll give up this hobby, will you forgive me? Please, forgive me." How could I have ever married someone so selfish, only thinking about himself? I regret it more than ever. I'm so sick of you only thinking about yourself. Have you ever considered how deep the wounds are that you've left on Jolie's heart? Compared to that, your firing is nothing." But even as I looked at him coldly, he kept on muttering excuses. "Enough with the excuses and the rationalizations. How can you expect forgiveness after dragging our precious daughter into your hobby and treating her like a product? Goodbye." My husband was left speechless, slumping to the floor and bursting into tears. Later on, the divorce with Ken was finalized. I made sure all photos of our daughter he had taken were deleted right in front of him. I demanded a lump sum of $200,000 from him for emotional damages and child support for Julie. And true to my father's declaration, he was fired from the company. His sudden departure sparked various speculations within the company, but eventually, those whispers faded, and the memory of my husband, who wasn't much of a worker to begin with, was completely forgotten. Ken, it seems, had to take on debts to pay the compensation and is now juggling multiple part-time jobs. Meanwhile, Julie and I moved back to my parents' house and started a new life. Julie is now happier, spending her days with a smile and energetically attending school. As her mother, I intend to protect her diligently from now on.